Se sen nauhoitakaan.
Kysyksä? Joo. En muista mitä kysyt.
So, we talk about self-awareness and a lot of different kind of like aspects how to start doing self-awareness. But how do you start with self-awareness? How do you practice self-awareness? Do you have any tips or steps how to follow?
Well, I would always suggest to make it as playful as possible. Cause like, why not? Cause it's still gonna be a lifelong thing. You're never gonna be finished with it. So personally, that's just my vibe, and I like making it into a sort of a game with myself. Because it's still about like mental games anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, let's play then. And that's why I call it like, okay, I want to be at my very best game. So as it's about sort of like winning with myself and not competing against others, that makes me feel like a winner. It makes me feel energized, proud of myself. I'm like, yes, I did it. So that's why I turn it into a play. And like outside of any specific thing, because I also look at it as a muscle. It's something you have to build and practice, so that then when really like shit hits the fan, then you're sort of already equipped and you're able to respond to the situations that are really challenging. But outside of those situations, how you can train it, for example, is like one of the things is we're using a lot of judgments, self-judgments and judgments of others, and without even realizing we're doing that. So getting to the core of it, like, because we talked about the stories and the different limiting beliefs, but underneath all of that, there's a dynamic driving it, which is like judgment, and basically judging something as right or wrong, good or bad. And like, that's one of the best shortcuts I've found in a creative way personally, is like just to question myself, like, what would this situation look like if I weren't allowed to think this is either right or wrong, good or bad? Just like something like when I was a kid, you know, I don't know if you did that, when you walk over like a crossroad and you have the whites, you know, and I'm like, oh, I have to step on the white one because otherwise something will happen or something.
Yeah,
I
did it.
So I do the same thing just around this thing. It's like, okay, I can't think that this situation or this person or me, there's something wrong with me or something right with me even, or good or bad. Where does my thought go then? And that's a super interesting place because it goes to somewhere really new.
That's so
And
mind-blowing.
that's what I really think self-awareness is about. Getting new self-awareness, producing new thoughts, new places to come from, new perspectives. And as human beings, judgment, the process of judgment is really useful, or has been, or is still, like, that's the way the brain processes things, because our minds are driven either towards pleasure or to avoid pain. So basically it's just like right, wrong, good, bad all the time. And this is what happens. It's automatic. We don't have to do anything for it. So just the way I would in a business setting or in a workplace setting encourage people to be more sensitive and more emotionally oriented, to bring that, because there's a lot of structure in those environments. And I would urge people in love or intimate relationship situations to maybe put some structure, because it's just a lot of chaos and feelings and emotions. In this situation, that's the same thing. I would I lost the train of my thought, but what I was coming to...
So it's different at the workplace or
and before
in business.
that I said...
that thinking about like it doesn't need to be good or bad, or how do you...
Yes. So I was gonna say, so just as, because that's so automatic, the human brain does that judgment thing. So as it's so automatic, then to break that pattern, actually in itself is the action that creates new thinking and creates new possibilities and new perspectives from where you can then look at, and which are beyond right or wrong, good or bad. So that's one of the ways in how you can train and practice, just play with it and have fun with it. And you can do it by yourself, you can do it with your friends, with your colleagues at workplaces, and just like, oh wow, how would I think this? So that trains your thinking into something new.
How come it is, I think, I don't know if this is a fact or it's just my kind of like perspective, but somehow I think that people who has some sort of self-awareness, they are pretty easy to be with. And you don't kind of like have to take the responsibility from their feelings or from their thoughts, or I don't know, maybe what kind of thoughts you have, like,
that's a great observation, because somehow when you're self-aware, committed to that, there's no need to be right or wrong. So there's no reactivity, there's no control, and you don't want to be right, and therefore you don't want the other person to be wrong. So all the unconscious commitments to righteousness and wrongness and all of those things that are then leading into those stories we said about, you know, I'm not enough, I'm too much, you're bad, I'm bad, they're bad, all of those things, they don't get a foothold on anything. So they don't get to be born, the stories, because you sort of go one step prior to that, and you're like, oh wow, it's almost like being in curiosity and wonder about, oh wow, did I just think that? Did you just think that? Like, where does that come from? What an interesting thing. So it's that mindset of what an interesting point of view it is to have this point of view. How interesting is that, isn't it?
That's so well explained.
I was gonna say also, when we talk about self-awareness, it's our own self journey, but if we take that scenario at work and you see someone who is maybe not that self-aware, is there a way to somehow get a message across to them, like maybe you should be doing some inside work with yourself or something, or is it just that you have to first decide for yourself that, okay, I need to
send a letter?
But like, is there a way to kind of like, you know, do you ever come across?
I love your question. I love your question, because it's not called self-awareness for nothing. So it's like it actually starts with us. And just like, you know, it doesn't really help pointing fingers, and I think you should change. I don't think you're because you can always then, you know, add I like the Anais Nin quote of, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So like, I think that's a really safe place to start from, to always first go back to myself and say, if I just had a thought that person is really stupid, okay, what am I judging here? What's going on? What is my need here? Do I not feel understood? Do I not feel considered? Do I not feel, you know, valued by this person? And then that is something that has me withhold my real authentic feelings about the situation. And then as I don't feel that we have a trustworthy relationship where I could actually, you know, share my feeling or my need, therefore I then start judging. So just like always going back to yourself is a good idea. And self-awareness, that's the beauty of it. It's like, the more you cultivate self-awareness, because I really like to look at it as a garden, like you cultivate your self-awareness, you pull away the weeds and you plant some new seeds, and you know, it's an ongoing process, and you get these beautiful flowers, and you're like, oh my god, what a beautiful flower. And oh, now
beautiful thought.
Yeah, now it's winter, and now it's summer, and now it's spring in my garden. It's like really having that mind.
Can you ever go overboard? Like, can you garden be too flowery?
Well, that's a good question. Can you go overboard with self-awareness? I don't know. I think everybody would have to answer to that themselves. Personally, I would say, some people would say I'm obsessed with self-awareness, but to me that only speaks about them. I love it. It makes me feel really much more capable of being the kind of person that I really want to be. It makes me feel more empowered, more peaceful, more aligned, more grounded, more loving, more wise. So like from my perspective, why would I ever want to be anything like else that's going into that dynamic? But of course I can understand that for other people, it could be too much.
Mm.
And there again, that could be like somebody projecting at me, oh, you're too much or you're not enough. But breaking news will always be too much or not enough for
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody else can answer that question. Can you ever be too much self-aware? That's a very intimate and a personal.
Yeah, and I think if somebody feels that you're too self-aware, or you talk about self-awareness too much, maybe they're just not ready for their own self-awareness journey.
Yeah, and there's something that's disturbing them
Yeah.
in that,
Yeah.
and so usually that's you feel you have to start
Yeah.
criticizing somebody, because you could just go away. You could just change the radio channel. You could just
Yeah.
like, well, okay, she talks a lot about self-awareness. I'm not interested. Let me go over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then if there's something that bothers you about it,
Yeah.
and you have to stay there and criticize or whatever, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That you have to do that, and I would go like, oh, I wonder why that person have to do that.
Yeah.
Why they feel they have to do that. It would be an interesting thing to ask.
Yeah.
And I have to point out, like, I have a similar feelings that you are, since like all those breakthroughs that I've been going on with my self-awareness journey, that I totally feel that I'm more loving person for everyone else. Like, it's kind of like, even though I'm kind of like going through my own thoughts, it gives so much more to others as well. Like, since I don't have to be there, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, because
Yeah.
the other person doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
They just questioning or asking questions or pointing out their point of view. They
And
don't do anything.
that's a brilliant second part of, because you said, should you like tell them to change or whatever, but by you doing that work yourself, you actually become a space for possibility, for a new possibility for others, because you become that space of, which is lighter, which is easier to be around. And then when you're easier to be around, actually it just means like for them it's easier to be potentially also around you, and then that creates somehow a feeling of safety or trust or something, because you're not the kind of person who has to have an opinion about everything all the time, and you're not like you're right and oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Because when you do that with other people, it's like okay, let me not show myself, let me just stay a little bit hidden. And that's one of the things that when we become that space, that invites more possibilities in others. And that's why I feel so privileged of being able to do this work, because I get to witness on a daily basis just genius and greatness and greater potentials showing up, because they're like, oh, I feel safe in this space. Oh, somebody's interested in what I'm able to be and bring, and how brilliant I'm able to be, and also help me see my shadower points or my places where I want to grow in a way that is loving and not judgmental. So going back again to that judgment part, like that's a great place to start paying attention to. There are others, like the expectations we have, and then the assumptions we come. Like there are a lot of other things that I teach to my clients, and we go through them to really have like okay, I can pay attention to that, I can pay attention to that, and just bring those elements into the game. But there's no point of like supercharging too much immediately. You have to start somewhere, and even every single small step and small choice is really like a big step forward on the journey of self-awareness, because it will have an effect, because we're working at the level of the mind, so it'll have an effect on everything, at work, at home, through your private roles, your professional roles. So it's not like we're taking one thing after the other. It actually has a mass exponential impact when you work at the level of the mind, and you're like, oh, let me not judge over here. Interesting.
I love
I told you. But I want to ask this question, or might be that you still have something that you want to add here, but why is self-awareness crucial for your success?
Great question. Big question. Do we have a day?
We can take one.
Well, maybe in this context, so everything we already said, and at work we're still like most of the time we spend most of our time solving problems, right?
Yeah.
Creative problems, finding better problems, decision making is essential. So coming from a place of I'm being aware of my biases, I'm being aware of my limited ways of thinking, and therefore I'm able to choose a better way of thinking, or I'm able to at least lean back and say, ooh, I notice I'm being reactive over here, I notice I'm judging, let me take a while, pause, reflect, maybe I can choose something better. So just doing that shift mentally, can you imagine when you do big or small decisions all day long to solve problems, if you do it from a higher level of awareness or a lower level of awareness, the consequences that it creates in all your decision making. And I love taking this, there's this study that has been made, I don't have all the resources here now with me, but there's a study where they put like a group of people in a work setting in a neutral emotional state, and they had to solve a problem, and 13% of the people were in the group were able to solve the problem. Then they sort of put them in a positive, emotional state, and 70% of the people were able to solve the problem.
Okay, wow.
So if neutral and positive has that big of a thing, so can you imagine what sort of like negative, all of these, I'm not enough, I don't matter, I'm a burden, all of those mental soundtracks, they will actually generate negative feelings and feelings of powerless and feelingness, all those, well, I don't like saying negative feelings. I like to say negative mindsets and challenging feelings.
That's well put it.
Yeah. So, but with that in mind, we can just imagine what the percentage would have been to solving that problem in a work context where decision making is really essential and strategic.
Yeah.
That was a really, really well put.
Yeah. And you said something about people being reactive, and I think I can relate to that because I read this quote that life is, 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react. And I'm a very emotionally driven person, so my emotions are right there at the very front.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I caught myself thinking that, okay, there's a lot of outside things outside of me that are really in charge of my mood. Like, okay, the sun is shining, I'm feeling really happy. That's a good thing. But what about when it's raining? So then I'm reacting to that emotion that I'm not really happy about that.
Yeah.
So I can really relate to that, what you said about all those reactions. And now I feel like after this talk with you, I feel like I'm maybe able to a little bit, because you said taking a little bit of a space and just pausing yourself. And I think I'm going to take that on board with me today.
Yeah.
Because that is something that I struggle a little bit.
And actually, so to make it even clearer, then what you could do there, like when you're able to take that little pauser and the little stepping back there, the thing you could ask yourself is like, where am I? Am I below the line or above the line?
Okay.
That would take a whole day. We could go into that and we could have a whole workshop on that. But just the brief idea of that is when you're being sort of below the line in this context, what I mean by that is you're being in a reactive, you're being a fearful, you're being in a I'm at the effect of, or I just want to find a temporary relief because it's so uncomfortable state.
Yeah.
And somehow you're as you're reactive, your mind isn't open, isn't curious, isn't creative. So you're not having access to the best potentials. I like to look at the line as, for example, if you're like, there's water, it's water line, and you're below the line and you're like, well, I can't see the light, or you might even be drowning, or, you're having that feeling. Or then you're above the line, and then you're like, oh, interesting, that interesting point of view. I'm having this point of view. Oh, interesting. I wonder what's happening. At least you're wondering about what's happening. So again, you're not judging the situation, but you're just taking that little breather to say like, oh, where am I coming from here? Am I being defensive? Am I fear driven? Or am I still, or would I be able to shift into a more curious mindset? And sometimes it's just like, okay, good to know I'm below the line. very useful. I'm very dramatic right now. I'm totally emotionally overwhelmed. Good to know. So again, it's not a good excuse to judge yourself because you would be below the line.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, I don't think it's the best moment right now for me to go and ask that thing of my boss or to have that challenging conversation with my partner. I think I could, take a little breather here.
Yeah.
And just give myself the space that I need, and then go to the question, what do I need right now?
So the first step would be just
Stop,
stop.
pause, lean back. That's like the first step.
Yeah.
The second step is okay, where am I right
Yeah.
now? Like what's driving my behavior?
What's driving my behavior?
Yeah, and there are 3 core needs usually that throw us below the line that all humans have. We all have the need for security, approval, and control. And that's a good place to start. Like, okay, is my sense of security threatened in this situation, and how is it threatened?
Yeah.
Okay, well, good to know.
Yeah.
I remember when we were having these sessions and we were talking about like partnership and how it can be sometimes so difficult that your partner has a totally opposite opinion. And I loved it how you explain it, like you can be like with a kind of like a humor. Oh, well, you think like that? Kind of like, even though it's kind of like hurting you, or you really feel like salted or something like that, but you still can kind of like ask yourself, oh wow, oh my god, I really would love it to go this way or that way, and kind of like do it with a little bit of humor and kind of like that you don't really be so defended or take you one step back.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not always easy to go all the way to humor immediately, because there sometimes it really takes a little tiny baby step of, oh, okay, okay, so maybe that person also might have an interesting perspective. Oh, okay, and then actually what's really important in those situations is to learn to tend to yourself. Like, what do I need? So that would be the third step of, okay, what do I need in this situation? Without judging yourself, because often that's where we fall into another trap. It's like, oh, I'm so stupid, or I shouldn't be needing this, and then we're again in a judgment, and that's where self-judgment usually creeps in. So it's really important in those moments to like, okay, what do I need right now? Well, maybe the first thing is I need to take a breather. I need to drink a glass of water. I need to take 4 breaths to just calm myself down immediately, and then go along with that. Okay, what do I need right now? So those are really like clear steps that you can do in those moments. And then on the other hand, because I said below the line you can feel like you're drowning, well, I also like to give the example you can really become a great surfer, because when you're above the line there's like waves and there's like wind, and then it's like, well, either
I want to be that
it's
one.
okay, you can stand on the beach and be the person who looks at the surfers, because you can, that can be your enjoyment. Or you can have a, pina colada on the beach, and you can just be there like, oh, that, I like that. Oh, look at those good-looking surfers. Or you can also really just like metaphorically be the surfer of your life, because like waves will always crush you and hit you, and they will come. Like, you can't control that. But then again, like with that 10% what happens to you, 90% of how you respond, it's developing those skills. Of self-awareness, of self-leadership, of emotional leadership, of mental leadership, so that you're able to then, like, when the wave hits, throws you off, you're able to get back on your surfboard, and boom, you're back in the game, and now what's possible. So that's like that's the below the line, above the line possibilities. But just like when you start with it, it's just to locate yourself and lovingly let yourself be where you are. And that will quite naturally usually just like help you shift progressively or instantly, depending on, who you are, where you are, and when you are.
Amazing.
Henrika, thank you
so much.
It's been so lovely to talk with you. I think we could continue.
I think
Forever.
we could, and
Yeah.
I love your
Yeah.
questions. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Because this is the other thing. There needs to be a dialogue and a conversation going on within yourself to be able to get that self-awareness. And as I said in the beginning, we can't really become fully ourselves by ourselves. So we need each
Yeah.
other, and these conversations are so important.
Yeah.
That you're asking the questions, and then that allows me to sort of
Yeah.
bring whatever I've
Yeah.
come to humbly learn during my short little lifetime and working with all these people, so that we can then talk about it, and then we can together create more awarenesses.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole point, like getting together with other people. And I love the fact that you're building these communities and this community and this platform for people to come together and have these conversations and these services and all the amazing things that you told me you're creating and you're up to. And that's really the need for community, for conversation, for help, for support. That's supporting also the growth and evolution of self-awareness.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much.
We think
that's
doing
what we
so.
try.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming with us today, and thank you everybody, all the Neemers. Thanks for having us, and see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Katsotaan menikö se?
Hei, ihan super.
Niin.
Super.
Joo. Toivottavasti se tuli tonne vielä. Tarkastetaan se. Eikö, se on vielä